Hello music fans. So I've already made a video on my top 25 albums of 2023, but that list was heavily dominated by progressive metal and progressive rock with the odd, with like one post-hardcore album in there. There were some great releases that came out this year that weren't in those genres that I also wanted to spotlight. So I'm making this video for my top 10 favorite Metalcore, Mathcore, and Deathcore albums of the year. I'm probably going to make some more little top 10s like this. I might make one on punk, hardcore, and post-hardcore, and then another one on black metal, another one on alternative, indie, and psychedelic rock kind of albums that I like this year. So all of these 10 albums, they're in my top 150 albums of the year, and I listened to over 400 albums this year, so they're all really good, but they didn't quite crack my top 25 because of my tastes. I like progressive metal and progressive rock a bit better, but I recommend any fan of metalcore, mathcore, and deathcore check these albums out. Without further ado, let's just jump in with number 10, which is Veil of Maya and their album Mother. This is progressive metalcore, has some gent style guitar playing, some deathcore style breakdowns, but also has a lot of great pop influences in there. It's the 7th album by this American band. Their gent riffs are reminiscent of Meshuggah and Periphery, but there's a lot of almost deathcore brutal vocals and breakdowns, almost as extreme as Lorna Shore on here. Maybe not quite as extreme as them, but then also really catchy pop hooks and choruses like what Periphery does as well. I think fans of Periphery, Meshuggah, and Born of Osiris will like this album by Veil of Maya. I'd like to see them push the boundaries a little more on their next release. They're clearly very talented, but on this album, they really only have the two modes of their extreme, genty, heavy parts and then their catchy poppy hooks. I'd like to see them incorporate even more styles. I think that they'd be capable of. Number 9 is Viscera and their album Carcinogenesis. This is technical deathcore, and it's the second album by this supergroup from the UK. Members have played in the progressive metalcore act Heart of a Coward and the deathcore band Martyr Defiled. This is probably my favorite deathcore album of the year. The albums above it in this list, in this video, I tend to classify as either metalcore or mathcore rather than deathcore. My favorite track on this one is the title track, Carcinogenesis, that just goes so hard. Number 8 is Empire State Bastard and Rivers of Heresy. This is progressive metalcore with hardcore, grindcore, sludge, and thrash metal influences. Check out the song Harvest for a preview of this. It's the debut album by this group, founded by 2 members of the band Biffy Clyro. And they got Dave Lombardo from Slayer on drums. He's always a beast. This album is very intense, brutal, and it's weird at the same time. The musicianship, creativity, and performances here are stellar. As you can see, my list here will kind of lean towards the more progressive side of metalcore. I tried to stick with bands that kind of classify as metalcore, but some of them, just my progressive preferences are hard to shake here. Number 7 is Mutoid Man with their album Mutants. This is also kind of progressive, kind of metalcore, but it's also got a lot of hard rock, psychedelic rock, heavy metal, and hardcore punk, thrash metal influences thrown in there. Check out the song Call of the Void for a preview of this. It's the 3rd album by this American band that features Cave In vocalist and guitarist Stephen Brodsky, Converge drummer Ben Kohler, and Jeff Matz of High on Fire on bass. This supergroup is for fans of Every Time I Die because it's got that metalcore, but that hard southern stoner rock and hardcore punk influence that Every Time I Die has. So I think if you like them, you'll like this. I noticed there's a bunch of super groups on my list here, so I tend to like some of those groups that have experienced players from other bands coming together. Number 6 is Conquer Divide and their album Slow Burn. This is metalcore with post-hardcore and pop influences. Check out the song Atonement for a preview of this. It's the 2nd album by this all-female American metalcore band. I heard the single Welcome to Paradise before the release, and that prompted me to check this out. This would be a good album for fans of Spirit Box, Red Handed Denial, and Sordid Pink. The vocals here range from being really catchy and poppy sung vocals, especially in the choruses. They remind me of Hayley Williams from Paramore, but then they also go really intense and scream and remind me of Tatiana from Ginger, especially in the breakdown parts. The song structures here are a little predictable. This one isn't really progressive at all. It's very much straightforward. I could always tell when a breakdown was coming. The structures of the songs were fairly typical. Even on first listen, I kind of knew what I was in for. But I don't think this album's intended to have too many surprises or atypical structures or be innovative or proggy or anything like that. It's just really catchy metalcore with powerful female vocals that's really well done. Number 5 is Invent Animate with Heavener. This is progressive metalcore. It's got some djent in there, some ambient influences. Check out the song Without a Whisper for a preview of this. This is the 4th album by this American band. I listened to this single called Immolation of the Night first. I enjoyed that, so I knew this album would be pretty solid. It did not disappoint. This album has a lot of cool guitar parts, catchy vocal melodies, solid chuggy breakdowns with intense screams. Number 4 is actually an EP, but it's a really great EP by a really great band, so I figured it deserved to be on the list. This is the Callous Dowboys with God Smiles Upon the Callous Dowboys. This is Mathcore with metalcore and post-hardcore influences. Check out the song Wacko Jesus as a preview of this. This is just an excellent mathcore band from the US. Everything on here is awesome. It reminds me of the Dillinger Escape Plan, but it's even catchier than most Dillinger Escape Plan songs. The other 2 songs on the EP, besides Wacko Jesus, they continue in that spirit and they have great guitar parts, catchy clean vocals, as well as intense screams and chugging guitars. Number 3 is Termina with Soul Elegy. This is metalcore with deathcore, post-hardcore, djent, progressive metal, pop, and alternative rock influences. Check out the song Take Flight for a preview of this. This is the 2nd album by this band that features a well-known YouTuber and fellow Canadian Nick Nocturnal on guitar, and Andy Sizek, who also sings in Monuments on vocals. If you want to hear some of the best metalcore breakdowns of the year, this is an album you have to check out. It also has some of the catchiest choruses. The vocals from Andy are just great, as always. He has so much power in both his screaming and clean singing. The riffs that Nick provides are also just great. My number 2, I was thinking it's almost too proggy to qualify for a metalcore list, but I have The Gorge with their album Mechanical Fiction. This is progressive metalcore. It's got some sludge metal influences in there. Check out the song Synapse Misfire for a preview here. It's the 3rd album by this American band. The guitar riffs sound like Mastodon, that sludginess, or kind of earlier Mastodon riffs, but the vocals are intense and much harsher than any recent Mastodon albums. They're more like a metalcore type of screaming. They're on the Pelagic Records, which has a couple other bands I love, like The Ocean and Hypnos. And I went back and I listened to their first 2 albums right after hearing this one, and they're also both great. So this is a band that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. Check out The Gorge and Mechanical Fiction. And then my number 1 metalcore / mathcore / deathcore album of the year is going to be Pupil Slicer with Blossom. And this is more on the mathcore side, but it also has a lot of alternative, indie, post-rock, black metal, and death metal influences. Check out the song Blossom. That's one of the catchiest songs on the album that'll hook you in. That's probably, the rest are way more chaotic than that, but that one has the best hooks for sure. This is the 2nd album by this band from the UK. If you're a fan of Rollo Tomasi, I think you'll like this. They're also a female-fronted metal band who combine that mathcore brutality and intensity with beauty and atmosphere and catchiness, just like Rollo Tomasi does. A really nice mix of harsh vocals and clean singing. I heard the single Blossom first, and then I had to check this out. I love Rollo Tomasi, and this sounds like it could be the next band in that style, to combine the mathcore stuff with shoegaze and beauty. And Momentary Actuality is another great song in here, so I recommend that one as well. The clean vocals on that track actually reminded me of Metric, and then the brutal extreme vocals are just so intense. So that's my favorite metalcore, mathcore, deathcore album of the year. Hopefully fans of the core genres liked this video, and check out other videos on my channel if you're interested in keeping up to date on what's going on in metal, rock, and prog music. And subscribe if you want to stay in the loop on my videos. Like I said, I'll probably release some other top 10 videos in other specific subgenres so that I can talk about more of the albums from 2023 that I love that didn't quite make my top 25 overall, which was very heavily focused on prog metal and prog rock. Until next time, peace out.